There's something truly unique about Japanese horror. The way that the ghosts, slowly and methodically, stalk their victims. It creates a presence and builds a sense of dread and terror that you don't really see in a lot of other types of horror. When Kayako crawls down the stairs, wrapped in a tarp, or when Sadako pulls herself out of the well, it doesn't happen all at once, and it doesn't happen with a loud bang. It just kind of happens, and the victim can only slump to the ground and watch in awe, waiting to die. J-horror knows how to use subtlety and silence and stillness to its advantage. I would say it's a show don't tell, a unique way that the Japanese directors and writers tend to build that tension in comparison to how a Western director or a Western audience would perhaps want that horror to be shown. I'm not one for slasher flicks and the over-the-top gore and violence that you see in a lot of American horror films from the past couple decades. I think this is a better way to tell a horror story and to connect the viewer to what's happening on screen. This is especially true for me with video games. Makoto Shibata and Koei Tecmo's Fatal Frame series, to me, is the best example of this, and also my favorite game series in the horror genre. Also, Fatal Frame 3 and Fatal Frame 5 are the best games in the series, objectively. If you disagree with me, you probably have other terrible opinions, but that's okay. We all can't be perfect like me. So you probably can guess by now that with Sense 1 and Sense's Midnight, Fatal Frame were our biggest inspirations, and the way that we built those games was pretty much centered around how do I translate everything I love about those games into my own vision. So with our next title, Project Office, we wanted to keep moving in that direction, just keep doing what I was comfortable with and knew really, really well. We designed our character, Haruka, and her friend Misako, started working on enemies in the concept phase, got these all the way to finished rigged 3D models, did tons of concept art for environments, started building them out in Unity with our previous engine that we had for Midnight, kept moving forward every single day, pushing as hard as we could to make sure we would have something solid and showable for this year's TGS. And this was all back in, we started this game in 2019, writing it, and started earnest development on it pretty much immediately after Midnight was finished, and before we decided to push that patch with the additional content. So everything that you're seeing now was done basically around August, September of 2022. From there, we ended up deciding to move forward in a different direction and parted ways with our coder at the time and wanted to work primarily in Unreal thanks to UE5's rendering capabilities. Kay, the co-founder, and my wife, she's a 3D artist and environment artist, so for her this was a very comfortable transition. For me, not so much. I had to spend about 4 months from September until about December, maybe January, learning to code. I went to Udemy, took a bunch of courses, and found out that my brain is broken and I just don't work that way. So ended up canceling the coding, going directly towards working with blueprints, trying to understand all of that. I ended up kind of building out a brand new survival horror engine within Unreal for us, where I built our character controller, had Haruka on a temporary character rig, and used Mixamo animations, I believe. Started building out all these mini games that would be intrinsic to getting around the office building. Basic things, opening doors, locks. Even actually had a Fallout style lockpick minigame that I was working on. That was the last thing I ended up working on before taking a break. Spent an incredibly long time trying desperately to figure out how to get the Fatal Frame style camera that we had in Midnight, where you could take the Shinrai Shashin pictures to work with the fixed camera tank controls, because there was bugs with that left and right. It took me almost 2 months to get that kind of working in between other things. Then the next big hurdle, that was actually the thing that made me decide to take a step back and take a little break, was the inventory. The inventory just got really difficult and hard to work with. Spent a good 3 months, almost maybe 4 months in that case as well, just following every tutorial I could find, trying to kind of kit bash them together. Thanks, YouTube. to make something that was workable and worked and felt like what I wanted, which was the original Resident Evil 1 style inventory system. Ended up getting fairly close. Had some issues where some of the UI I couldn't quite get working, just, new to Unreal, not really sure how to make all of it work. After that stage, once that was done, I thought, okay, let's take a break and start working on environments. Trying to rebuild some of the stuff that we had already started and gotten pretty far on in Unity. Brought it back into Unreal, using, again, this time temporary assets, because now that we're using Unreal, we wanted to have a much better visuals than we originally planned. Started building out the basement level again, which was going to be our demo level. Built the whole map, made it a little bit more different and more complex than before. In Project Office, our thematic core was going to be manifested from these red vines that would kind of creep into our world from the spirit world. We had a lot of thematic elements that were going into that were really cool and unique at the time that I thought were really special. And this is a deeper story than I've ever written. It's something that actually has a lot of meaning, and I think would hit a lot of people hard in a lot of ways. And then something horrible and awful and bad and also really cool and good for everybody else happened. Konami did their Silent Hill transmission. Every single thing that we were trying to do with our game was being done by Konami in a Silent Hill title. And they were showing it in a first reveal trailer. They had the vines, they had the flowers, and of course it's Silent Hill, so it's, entities from hell as the core enemies. Yay.
Oh, sweetie.
Oh, baby, I missed you loving.
Honey, there's someone I want to introduce you to. He's the kindest, gentlest man I've ever met. Will you meet him?
Sure. He's got a gun!
Lloyd. Lloyd.
Huh?
So then I'm in a mech game. It was cool. So yeah, we're not giving up on Project Office. I really want to make that game. I've spent a long time writing it and working on it. But I want to show you something that Bokeh Game Studio put out on their YouTube channel.
どうなんですかね。あんまり海外でっていうので意識して日本とかっていうのはないですけど、でもやっぱり作りやすいっていうのはありますよね。正直なところ。作りやすい。やっぱり妖怪にしろ、侍のアクションにしろ、そんなに無理しなくても、なんかいろいろ作れるし、あと嘘もつきやすい。なんか正しいかどうかっていうよりは自分たちの感覚でデフォルメもできるし。
確かにね。でデフォルメとか嘘はつかないとゲームって作れない理由とやっぱありますよね。バックボーンがないところの嘘をつくと取り留めもなく。だからそうです。忍者侍はちょっとなんか現実を置いといて、なんていうかワールドワイドでも概念としてかっこいいものとして幽霊は無理でしょ。
そうですね。日本の幽霊しか見たことないし。
ゼロは海外難しくなかったんですか？
最初全然通じると思ってなかったです。一作目作ったところ。とりあえず怖ければいいと思ってたんで、でもなんかちゃんと怖いものをちゃんと作れば分かってもらえるんだと思いました。その時は全然ニッチなジャンルですし、幽霊自体は誰も知っているとはいえ、それをゲームに化してやっぱりバイオハザードがメジャーになるとはあんまり思ってなかったけど、でもあれよりも怖いければなんか受け入れられるものになるかなという。
When we saw this video, Kay and I couldn't stop thinking about the idea of authenticity and how we need to make a game that is something only we can make from our unique perspective as a immigrant from Hong Kong and an American who grew up in rural Pennsylvania. So we packed up all our things and moved back up north to Pennsylvania from Texas, and as we drove through the fog somewhere in the Rust Belt, I got the most unique idea ever.
In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill.
No, I'm not making a Silent Hill clone. I'm not doing that. Instead, I actually went back to an old sketch I did for Inktober in like 2019. We had actually toyed with this project and written a full game doc for it back in 2019, early 2020. I pulled out the character design that we had for the main character, found the old model that is no longer useful, and then we decided, since it's so close to Halloween, let's go around to all the Halloween haunted houses and haunted corn mazes. We went to Jason's Woods, which was kind of the mainstay when I was growing up, and then Field of Screams in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is considered one of the biggest and best in the country. It's impossible to really explain if you're not from southern Pennsylvania, but for whatever reason, Halloween is a huge thing here. I grew up with it, and I kind of missed it while living in LA and Texas and all these other places. And since our new game is based on a haunted corn maze Halloween attraction, it was a really great opportunity for us to kind of make sure we got that feel perfect and really understood what people love about those things. The next step was kind of figuring out the tone and feel that we wanted for the overall game. We knew a branching off point was that, we loved the J-horror aesthetic and feel, but Hong Kong horror is pretty different with a couple exceptions like Rigor Mortis. Things like Mr. Vampire and Biozombie, which are my two favorites, are slapstick, comedy, kung fu, action movies, but they have something kind of in common with Sam Raimi's Evil Dead series, which I also love. There seems to be kind of an understanding of you're making something that needs to be entertaining and fun, and a lot of people don't necessarily really love the idea of a really high tension, constant, dread-filled horror experience. They want that cool-off period. They want that fun. They want some one-liners. They want some gore. Maybe they want a chainsaw or a flamethrower. And I think that might be one of the things that my games have been missing so far, is that kind of sense of adventure, and the action is less in the player's hands. So what we really want to push this time is action and letting the player feel like they can be kind of the Ash Williams, the hero that blows up the bad guy at the end. I think that's what makes Resident Evil so successful as well. Speaking of which, Resident Evil obviously is still going to be a primary influence and point of reference for us, because we still intend to have the fixed cameras and tank controls, but we really want to move our combat system towards melee, which Office will be focused on melee as well. I've been looking at examples from Siren and Silent Hill primarily to get that kind of clunky underdog feel to the combat, but blasphemy, I know, I actually really like Callisto Protocol's melee system. I think it had some issues with it that need to be worked out, and why not take the opportunity to see if we can figure out how to make that work better. So this is where we're at right now. We unveiled Sense's Death Harvest on Halloween, and that's what we've been working on for the past few months. I took the old design for Ollie and redid her, gave her a jacket. We moved on to enemies. I started drafting out what our kind of base zombie level enemy will be. Then started working on background concepts, environment, things like that. Jumped into 3D, started making weapons and items and assets for the environments we're going to be in. This whole time, Kay has been working hard on our first major environment for the game and kind of blocking out the whole map so we can make sure things are to scale and look good. And all the while, I've been working primarily on the game doc, making sure that we take in a lot of the critique from Midnight and Sense 1 regarding pacing and backtracking, and making sure that we're really adding action to this game in a way that feels good and tight for a survival horror, because that's what we're making primarily. My goal between now and the next video is to work more on concepts, finish up the game doc, and hopefully get into Unreal and start pulling over everything that's still usable from Office right now. So yeah, that's our progress. Not sure when the next devlog will be, probably in a few weeks. I plan to do one a month from now on, if possible, if there's anything worth showing. Beyond that, thank you so much for watching and listening to my extremely awkward dictation. I will get better at this, I think, and I probably should, because it's my job. So thank you. Subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, all the things all the YouTubers say. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.